welcome to the 2021 Beverly Hills Spring Art Show. My name is Ashley Gibbons, and I would like to welcome Andrea Hsu, Scratchboard artist, and Kim Winberry, watercolor artist. You can introduce your practice to the audience. Tell us what it is and maybe a little bit about it and how you came upon it. It's kind of like the overall introduction of your work. And Andrea, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. So Scratchboard is a black and white medium natively. So it is a blackboard with a white material underneath it. And so the art is created by removing the thin layer of black paint, essentially, and revealing the white under material. And I do this with an X-Acto knife or something really, really tiny. And so it's kind of a precision, sort of like an engraving technique, basically. And I'm drawing. And my medium, my materials tend to be sort of surreal. I like fantasy art. A lot of it's sci-fi inspired. And I love space. And so there's a lot of like astronomy, solar systems and galaxies and things like that. So in my art. And I've been doing this medium for about 10 years, I think. But I also dabble in other things like acrylic and a little bit of watercolor and just sort of pen and ink. So I sort of love it all, but my main love is scratchboard art. And so I've been doing that for a while.
Kim, how about you?
I am a watercolorist. I paint with watercolor and then I follow that up with India ink. I have been starting to do like resin coated pieces. Sometimes I paint on paper. Sometimes I paint on panels that have a clay coating on them and then resin those. I've been painting for about 15 years. I paint a lot of animals, wildlife, florals. I just started getting into doing people and some fan art, but my love is animals, endangered species.
That's what I was going to ask was about the animals. Like, what was like the subject? What was important to you about your subject?
Yeah, it's the endangered nature that I'm trying to draw attention to. I've written a book, a kid's book. I'm in the process of illustrating it and adding augmented reality to it. So I've inserted interactivity into the paintings that I'm doing. So you can scan a code and look at it through your smartphone and it comes to life.
What size are they usually?
I
Yeah.
paint anywhere from, I think the smallest I've done is a 4x4 and the biggest I've done is a 48 by 29.
And they're so the color, they're so vibrant. Can you talk to us
Mhm.
about like the choice of coloring?
Um, I like to use very saturated colors. When you do watercolor and you lay a layer down, it can be pretty vibrant, but then when it dries, it dulls a little bit. So you have to go in and apply another layer of color and another layer of color until you're happy with it.
And Andrea, can you talk about like the palette of yours since it's scratchboard? Because it looks like I looked at them and it's not just white on there, right?
No,
Like,
there's some pieces that are just black and white, which means I don't add any color to them. But the cool thing about Scratchboard is once you've removed the black ink, the white material is just a clay board. And then you can apply color to it like you would any other panel, for example. And so what I use is actually, this is perfect because I use watercolor pencils. Um,
Oh, cool.
I don't like to mix paint, so this is my thing. I really don't like to clean up paint. So what I use is I have like 200 different watercolor pencils in every sort of color you might imagine. And then I paint onto the surface where I've scratched away the black ink. So let me see. This is a piece that I've done most recently. It's a space piece, so you can see the bright part of the moon. I've left mostly white. And then I created the stars by stippling the pattern onto the board. And then the color can be applied on top of where I've stippled, basically.
can you explain stipple?
I take the knife and I basically do a little tiny, like a stabbing motion almost. I'm kind of like picking at the black paint that's covering the surface. Yeah, so It's kind of like a pointillism sort of technique, but removing the material instead of adding it. So.
Do you look for specific images for your work, and then, or are these coming from you? Are they compilations of them, or?
I think it's a mix. I sort of have a vague notion of what I want it to look like, and then I spend some time, looking for reference photos, something that sort of speaks to me. If I see it visually, I go, oh, that's kind of what I want, or the color palette that I want, and I can kind of build off of that. I love fantasy books and sci-fi novels, so I get a lot of ideas from those too. And just
can you talk then about like the subject of your work some more too? So since you said it's because you said science artist, right? Is that on your Instagram? I think I saw.
Yeah. So my day job is I'm a scientist. I work on space. So I work in propulsion. That's my area of expertise. So I'm kind of a space nerd. I love astronomy. So and that sort of theme. I just love all the colors and sort of the idea of, I think it's exploration that it really is inspiring to me. And most of my pieces have to do with exploring and dreaming and sort of just fantasy worlds and dreamlike worlds. So that's where I pull a lot of inspiration from too.
Kim, do you have another career or other careers in your past that are influencing? Or?
I was like a web developer, an email marketing person. But since COVID, my son's health has kind of taken he has a seizure disorder, and it kind of got a little worse. And so I'm taking care of him.
Can we talk a second about COVID as far as just like art? And because I mean, has your art changed this year?
I lost my day job when COVID hit. And so I was kind of put in a position where, what do I have that I can do? I took my knowledge of social media and email marketing and poured it into a website and really focused on digital presentation and digital presence on social media. I'm waiting to see how what I did last year with my online presence is gonna marry with my shows. We need to reflect on 2020. Everybody says how bad it was, but how was it really? Okay, I lost my day job, but I got to spend time with my kids, and I got to spend more time with my art, and I did over 150 pieces during the year. And so I put them together in a book, and I'm kind of chronicling my way through 2020. I've put the augmented reality inside the book, so that when you open the book, you can read the codes, and the codes will play time-lapse videos, so you can watch me paint the pieces as you're flipping through the book.
Andrea, how has your 2020 COVID beyond year?
It has been so crazy. 2020 was kind of a reassessment period for me. And so I took my art, which was really I was so thankful that I have this creative outlet. And I think that most artists maybe feel this way, that they have something that's kind of theirs that they hang on to, that they can create and express themselves and, tell the world what's going on. Right. So I made so much art. I mean, I just kind of and part of it was kind of this, we couldn't go anywhere. So what else can you do? And I kind of just sat and went, okay, well, for a long time, I didn't feel like making any art because I was a little bit just sort of depressed. But I took my whole business and I rethought it. So I thought, I used to make these very elaborate, large pieces, well, large for Scratchboard, but 11 by 14 pieces. Right. It would take me months to do. And I would make a single piece and I would sell it for thousands of dollars. And I would make reprints of it. And most of what I sold was the reprints, which is totally understandable. It's affordable. And I thought it was a great way to kind of get my art out there. But then in 2020, I sort of thought, what I really love about art is not the selling part of it, but I want to spend more time creating. With 2020 being such a tumultuous year, I found my mood kind of going up and down. So I made a lot of different art and shortened the time period. So I made these little tiny 3 by 5 inch miniatures that would only take me like a day, maybe 2 days. And I would work on a couple at once. And so I decided to stop making prints altogether. I'm just gonna sell originals now from now on. And I think, I mean, I just love that idea because now every piece that I sell is exactly the way I wanted it. And so this way I feel good about each piece that I sell. I dropped my prices way down and I spend more time creating more art. So I'm thankful. I actually had a pretty good 2020 and I'm excited for what 2021 brings.
I enjoyed, I think, looking at both of your art. Like yours is, Andrea, are these huge concepts
Right.
on this very little medium, and then I felt like some of yours were just like little tiny creatures that were just like so big, so
Yeah.
blown up.
Yeah.
I thought that the dichotomy there was kind of fun. So 2020 has been for everyone quite the year. It sounds like lots of changes, artistically too, as well as just personally for everyone. What about your source material, Kim? Where does that come from?
Some of it I get from photographers that I have arrangements with, but most of it comes from public domain images or stock photography that, because it's not like I can just run out and take a picture of an endangered animal. This picture is a compilation of 2 pictures that my sister took when she was in South Africa. And then I'll take images and I'll find 3 or 4 that I really like. I'll render it in Photoshop. I'll kind of put it together and then use that as a reference, as a single reference.
Can you all talk to us about who your audience is, or like something about your audience, like maybe some thoughts on it, on who they are? And
well, as far as my audience, I'm trying to reach people with the idea of endangered species and drawing awareness. I don't necessarily want to paint to a budget, but if I want a message to get out there, then I have to make sure it can be seen and absorbed some way.
Andrea, can you talk about your audience too?
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of similar. The other plus of making smaller pieces is they're much more affordable, and it was also my goal to try to reach more people that way, and to be able to make just more quantity of art that people can enjoy. Yeah, and to make it more affordable too. I tend to, I don't know who tends to find my art appealing. It's always kind of a surprise to me. One of my favorite things to do when I sit at these art shows is I will usually bring a piece to work on. And I bring my piece and then I bring a couple little scrap pieces that people can try. And I love that because kids like to come by and they want to try. I find that people of all ages seem to like my art, but it's usually people that are a little more, I don't know what the right word is. They're just more kind of attracted to like dream type themes. But really, I think it's kind of all people. And I'm excited for when art shows come up again that we can actually show in person, because it's always great to see people's reactions in person.
And can you both talk to us about like the beginnings of your art? Like what brought you into making the art that you do?
My husband was disabled, bedridden, and he wanted to spend the time that he had trapped in there. He wanted to do art and paint. And I've always wanted to do, at that point, I had always wanted to try watercolors. So I got some books and started teaching myself to paint. And that was in 2005. And I've just been going since.
Mine was a little more organic. I grew up loving art and I always wanted to be an artist. And so I'd always done it as a hobby. I just kind of did pencil and paper, graphite, pen and ink sort of thing. And I think I went to Michael's one day and I was looking in their drawing aisle, and they had Scratchboard, because it's kind of a drawing technique, next to their drawing pads. And so I took it home. I kind of just like scratched a little bit, played with it. And I was really kind of drawn to I don't know, it has a very precise nature, I guess. And I love that I could, because I was a student at the time in college, I didn't have much time. And so I love that you can kind of do it for 10, 15 minutes, whatever you have, and then put it down and then pick it back up the next day and just kind of start immediately right where you left off. And I love that about the technique. So I just was kind of hooked, and I started drawing all sorts of things, and just found that I liked certain subjects more than others, but it just sort of grew over time. I taught a workshop, I think for Beverly Hills Art Show back in October. And it was like I taught a moon piece with like a couple of stars next to it. And the students didn't get all the way through it because it's just an hour class. So the goal is just to get them going. And so I got them going. Some of them got about halfway through, but I actually had one lady who took it home, and we had supplied them with everything they needed. So she took it home, she finished it, and then she sent me a picture of it later, and she was like, "This is so addicting." And I was like, "Yeah." Yeah, it is. So it just kind of, it's consumed me over time. I don't know.
So Andrea, you were telling us earlier how many times you've been with the Beverly Hills Art Show. Can you tell us again?
Yeah, I think I've been showing there off and on since about 2013. So it's been 8 years. It's one of my favorite shows because it's so large and varied, and you get so many different mediums. And I also like that the artists have a little bit of time before and after the show opens to walk around. And I love to talk to the other artists as they're getting set up too. So it's a ton of fun.
And Kim?
I actually got turned on to the Beverly Hills Art Festival from a friend of mine who's a bronze sculptor who shows regularly. And my first show was October of 2019, and I was super excited to have a show that was relatively close. The Beverly Hills show is a great show. I love the show.
Are you then local then, Kim?
I'm in Valencia.
Oh, great.
So I'm not too far.
And Andrea?
I'm by LAX airport, so also not too far. Yeah, and on years where I don't show, I still like to go to the show. It's just, I almost enjoy that as much as showing, because you can really enjoy the art. So I love to just go and walk around.
It's very fun to get to go and look and take your time looking at all of the art at the Beverly Hills Art Show. Well, why don't you both let us know how we can find you? Kim, where can folks go to find you and your work?
I have a website, waterplusinc.com, and I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, both as waterplusinc.
And you can find me at my website too. It's called widgetartstudios.com. And I also have an Instagram. You can look me up at andrea.hsu.fine_art.
Before we close, do you have anything else that you'd like to let everybody know?
Yeah, I have I'm teaching the 15th and the 16th at the Manor. I also do Zoom workshops for you guys once a month.
Andrea, would you like to leave us with anything else too?
I don't have anything. I'm going to be making a lot of art. Some of my art is shown locally in El Segundo at a shop called Create and Express. I'm really looking forward to returning to Beverly Hills. And you can also check out my Instagram for my latest art pieces.
I really enjoyed talking to you both today. Thank you so much. Really enjoy your work.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.